Discover the incredible moment when a millionaire learns that love, not wealth, transforms lives. Alex Harper sat behind his glass desk, overlooking Manhattan, the city sprawling beneath him like an endless sea of ambition and greed. The skyline glittered, but inside him, something felt murky. A scandal loomed, a dark cloud threatening to tear apart the empire he had built, one distracted by profits and self-interest. As CEO of a leading tech firm, he had sacrificed connections, letting the noise of wealth drown out the calls for authenticity and intimacy. Success came easy, love, it seemed, remained an ungraspable phantom. His father's voice echoed in his mind, a harsh reminder of the mechanic who taught him the worth of grit and humility. But those values had long faded in the pursuit of status. His cold, isolated existence shrouded him in acute loneliness, gnawed him, but he masked it under designer suits and sleek cars. If I was respected, he thought, if I ruled the room, I'd finally belong. Suddenly, that very power felt like a prison, a reminder of the connections he had sacrificed for the sake of wealth. Panic surged when the report landed on his desk: corruption, misuse, deceit. His company's practices, once ignored, were now front-page news. It seemed absurd, and yet haunting. The very traits he had overlooked now threatened to unearth everything he held dear. With every tick of the clock, dread filled his chest. They would come for him. His family's legacy, his meaning, all teetered on the edge. Julia, we need to talk. The name slipped from his lips. Julia Miller, a community organizer who had been rallying against the exploitation his company cloaked in its operations. At first, their encounters made him uncomfortable, the way she wielded compassion like a weapon against corporate greed. Yet, there was a warmth in her, a tenacity that chipped away at the icy walls he had built. Curiously, her pleas for accountability became a reflection of his own unresolved guilt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each interaction with Julia unearthed buried emotions, revealing how far he had lulled himself into believing power was the only form of respect. He watched her as she spoke passionately about those affected by the company's transgressions. Her eyes lit up, expressive and genuine, a stark contrast to the lifeless gaze of those in his corporate circle. Did he care more about a fortune he had amassed, or the lives that had been upended in the process? The weight of his choices clenched his stomach. As he considered their connection, doubt loomed like a storm cloud. The tension was palpable now. The impending scandal grew, clawing at the edges of his sanity. Julia's presence ignited a fierce battle within him between the life of prestige he loved and the raw vulnerability she offered. Would he rally to defend his empire or succumb to this primordial call for connection? As the walls of his carefully constructed world began to close in, Alex felt despair seep into his bones. The stakes felt insurmountable. A legacy he might build would demand everything that mattered. Could he abandon the life he had fought so hard to uphold? As he gazed out at the dazzling skyline, he felt the chasm widen between his desires and fears, caught in a moment that could shatter his world. Would he dive into love, or cling to a life devoid of it? The air crackled with tension as Alex sat in his office, an illuminated cityscape blurring through his thoughts. The night seemed to wrap around him like a heavy blanket, amplifying his feelings of isolation. He vaguely recalled the countless late nights spent negotiating deals, but tonight felt palpably different. There was an urgency in his chest, a gnawing sensation underlying his usual bravado. Making a choice had never seemed so daunting. Julia, he whispered, her name becoming a haunting echo in the recesses of his mind. The stark contrast between her uncompromising honesty and his carefully curated indifference loomed large. Every conversation they had shared recently unveiled layers of his character previously hidden beneath a veneer of success. It was as if she had turned a key to unlock a door he had sealed shut, revealing dark compartments filled with regret, disillusionment, and yearning for something authentic. Suddenly, the thought of losing it all, not just his company but also the respect and dignity he craved, shattered the facade he so desperately clung to. Would anyone truly miss him if his empire crumbled, or would their silence speak volumes? The notion of legacy weighed heavily on him. Was it worth more than the relationships that lay in tatters? His fingers tapped nervously against the polished wood of the desk, vibrations of anxiety coursing through him. What if he were to confront Julia, not as an adversary, but as a partner willing to take accountability for the past? The idea rolled over him with an exhilarating rush. It felt reckless, yet it stirred a long-dormant spirit within him, the need for change. Perhaps this wasn't merely about facing a scandal, it was about confronting himself. With a swift decision, he reached for his phone, ready to reach out. Fear surged, and he hesitated. Did he really have the courage to abandon everything he had constructed? No, the question twisted in his gut, threading through his thoughts. Was he even capable of crafting a new narrative, one not dominated by the cold binary of success and failure? The intense nature of this dilemma forced him into a state of contemplation. He remembered a passage from a book he had read years ago, change isn't born out of comfort but of desperation. The memory struck him. For so long, he had hidden behind walls of material wealth, dismissing the very human connections he had once found value in. It was desperation that ultimately birthed a resolve he hadn't known he possessed. Step by step, Alex constructed himself anew in his mind. He grabbed his coat and left the office, each movement fueled by a purpose that had eluded him for years. He navigated through the busy streets, reflecting on how he would explain to Julia that they shared more than opposing ideologies, they shared a profound journey of transformation. The bustling sounds of the city began to fade, swallowed by determination, as he thought about the possibility of forging alliances instead of rivalries. Empowering others could redefine what he sought in life, and it could also help him reclaim his own humanity. Arriving at her office, he paused. The weight of the world hung heavily, but he felt an undeniable sense of clarity. He was no longer simply a man seeking to protect his empire. He was a man desperate to forge genuine connections, to embrace vulnerability, and perhaps even to love. As he raised his hand to knock, a surge of trepidation ricocheted through him. He wasn't merely challenging Julia, he was challenging his own very essence. The moment felt like standing on the edge of a diving board, heart racing against the unknown below. But the question loomed larger: would Julia accept this man, the one trying to reshape himself from the ashes of his own ambition? The answer seemed to hinge on a delicate pivot, one that would test their beliefs and their future. With a steadying breath, he knocked. Uncertainty clashed with hope as the door slowly opened, and he braced for what lay on the other side. Would he find understanding, or would the walls he once built rise again, higher than ever before? As the door swung open, Alex was met with Julia's surprised expression, a mixture of curiosity and caution evident in her furrowed brow. The room, adorned with shelves of books reflecting her passion for art and design, felt warmer than he remembered, yet he could sense the tension vibrating in the air between them. For a fleeting moment, he questioned his decision, but the urgency driving him refused to be quelled. "Alex?" she prompted, tilting her head slightly, uncertain yet inviting him in. He stepped inside, the familiar scent of fresh paint and polished wood nudging memories to the forefront, memories of debates, laughter, and moments steeped in a fraught but honest camaraderie. I wanted to talk," he managed, his voice betraying the confidence he thought he had forged. "About everything." Julia crossed her arms, her demeanor shifting to a guarded stance. "Everything? You're not really one for open conversations." Her words cut, but instead of retreating into his usual deflection, they sparked within him a renewed sense of resolve. "That's exactly it. I've been running away from these conversations for too long, running away from the person I've let myself become." A flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by that ever-present frown of skepticism. "And what, Alex? You think this is some sort of epiphany? Just because you're standing in my office doesn't absolve you of the past?" "Maybe not, but it's a start. I've spent years convinced that success was measured by wealth and power, but I've come to realize that those things don't fulfill you. They isolate you." His heart raced as the words spilled out, unfiltered. He hadn't expected such a raw confession to resonate so deeply, yet he felt the truth settle into his bones. I want to take accountability not just to you, but to myself, too. Her guarded stance softened slightly, yet still, there was a wariness in her eyes. It mirrored his own internal struggle, a contemplation of the impact of vulnerability. What does that even mean for you? You walk in here, confessing change like it's some magic solution. This isn't a game, Alex. People get hurt. I know, he replied, the weight of his past actions engraving lines of sincerity on his face. And I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I want to learn. I want to build something more meaningful than just a business. It's about relationships. Real connections. This isn't about triumph, it's about growth. She studied him, a pivotal silence lingering in the air, amplifying the gravity of their exchange. And you think you can just ignore everything that happened? The manipulation? The way you turned a blind eye to everyone around you? Her words resonated painfully within him, an undeniable truth he had been avoiding. I can't change what I've done, but I can change how I approach my life going forward. I want to understand those I've hurt, starting with you. Each passing second felt like a heavy weight, pressing down on the air between them. Julia exhaled sharply, the air around them palpable with tension and unspoken thoughts. Alex, change isn't just an illusion you can create with words. It requires action, sacrifice. You know that, don't you? Yes, he affirmed earnestly, and I'm ready to do whatever it takes. Then prove it. Her challenge lingered like a dare, igniting something within him that yearned for action rather than mere words. As Alex considered her challenge, the looming reality of the sacrifices ahead pressed upon him. The willingness to confront not just external barriers but also the deeply embedded fears within seemed daunting. Would he be able to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead, armed with newfound resolve? Standing at the threshold of change, he realized that the moment of reckoning was not just with Julia, but with himself, ultimately testing the fabric of his identity and the conviction he had just declared. The stakes were now higher than ever. He wouldn't just face Julia, he would be forced to confront the limitations he had placed upon himself as he embarked on this uncharted journey. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the ringing of his phone interrupted the silence. A familiar number flashing on the screen made his heart race anew. What new challenge awaited? Alex's fingers hesitated above the screen as he stared at the name illuminating his phone. It belonged to Greg, a longtime business partner, and a harbinger of complications. In the past, he would have seen Greg's call as a necessary obligation, a part of the grind that defined his previous life. But now, holding the phone felt different. It represented a diversion, an opportunity to slip back into old patterns or embrace a new path. Answer it, Julia murmured, breaking the tense silence as she leaned back in her chair, arms still crossed. Her quiet encouragement tingled with an intensity that made him acutely aware of the need for evolution in every part of his life. But before he could make a decision, Alex pressed the answer button, his heart pounding in anticipation. Greg, he acknowledged firmly, trying to conceal his inner chaos. Hey, Alex. I need to run something by you. There's a potential merger opportunity that I think could make us a killing. The excitement in Greg's voice was palpable, already pulling Alex toward familiar comforts of ambition and wealth. Yet, sitting in Julia's office, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his recent revelations pressing down, challenging his usual instincts. Greg, can we hold off on that for a moment? I want to talk about something personal. The shift in his tone startled even him. The insistence on branching into uncharted territory was a gamble he couldn't ignore. He sensed Julia's gaze on him, approving yet questioning. A pause hung on the line, replaced by Greg's skeptical laughter. Personal? What is going on, man? Did you finally hit a midlife crisis? Alex swallowed, wrestling with the vulnerability that felt both terrifying and liberating. I'm trying to redefine what success means to me. It's not just about money anymore, Greg. I need to focus on relationships, not just profits. Is this about Julia? Greg's tone shifted, he sensed a crack in Alex's armor. You're better than this, Alex. Money is power. Don't let personal drama pull you down. Those words cut deeper than any critique Julia had made. It was a reminder of the old Alex, the greedy architect of his own isolation. He felt a flicker of anger alongside a creeping regret. This isn't personal drama, he shot back, keen to repel the old arguments. This is about change. Real change. Change? Greg scoffed. You think stepping back from business is going to make you feel better? It's a risky move, one that can cost you your empire. I would be careful. The weight of the conversation landed heavily on Alex, the tension palpable, crystallizing the realization that he stood at a crossroads. He had pursued power at all costs, and now, faced with the potential for sacrifice, he questioned what he really wanted. Was he ready to put his priorities to the ultimate test? Maybe I need that risk, he replied, collecting his thoughts like marbles scattered across a floor. Maybe I'm ready to lose everything I built if it means finding something real. He glanced at Julia, whose expression betrayed a mixture of surprise and flickering hope. Greg's silence told him that the distance he was trying to traverse was wider than he had imagined. Do what you think is best, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. I'll take care of things at the office. As the call ended, he felt emptiness wash over him. The world he had fought to construct was crumbling, and the allure of nostalgia was clinging like smoke. Yet, standing against the backdrop of Julia's steady gaze, the feeling that surged within him was oddly liberating. Are you okay? Julia asked, a note of concern transposing the prior tension. I think I might be, he confessed, his voice underscoring a vulnerability that echoed with promise. It's unnerving, but I want to redefine what success means, to fit more than just the mold I've built for myself. That's a start, but intentions aren't enough. Actions speak, she replied, her words churning within him like an internal fire. Are you ready for that? As those final words lingered, the sense of urgency shifted. It was no longer about facing an external challenge. The real pursuit was an internal one, a deeper understanding of who he could become. The phone buzzed again, a new notification lighting up his screen. A message from an unexpected source, one that could bring everything he hoped for into focus. Who had reached out? The answer might change everything. Alex stared at the notification, his heart quickening. It was a message from Lisa, an old friend from college and someone he hadn't spoken to in years. The brief text was uncomplicated yet provocative. Can we meet? I have something important to tell you. He felt a strange pull toward the opportunity buried in those words. In his previous life, meetings like these often revolved around business exploits or networking grudges. But now, they conjured different kinds of possibilities. The thought of reconnecting with Lisa stirred a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. She represented a chapter of his life where ideals ran free, unconfined by the mechanical hustle that had kissed his ambition with greed. Who's Lisa? Julia's voice interrupted his reverie, laced with curiosity and skepticism. A friend from college. We had a shared passion for exploring ideas without the constraints that business usually imposes. He sensed the weight of his words, as though speaking them could conjure back a version of himself that he desired to embrace. Interesting, Julia remarked, her eyebrows slightly raised. Rekindling those old dynamics might give you clarity. Or it could pull you into past habits. What do you think she wants? The question hung in the air, bouncing off the walls of his mind. The flicker of excitement he felt at the thought of seeing Lisa wrestled with the nagging fear of slipping back into who he used to be, capitalizing on fleeting relationships for convenience. I don't know, he admitted, feeling the need for honesty. But maybe I need to find out. Then go, she urged, an undertone of encouragement lacing her sentiment. But remember, every time you engage with your past, you have to decide what you want from it. Nodding, Alex dismissed the self-doubt that threatened to creep in. He had already turned his back on simple pursuits in favor of discovering the depth of relationships, so why not pursue this connection? After a quick back and forth of messages, they agreed to meet the next day at a small cafe near the old university campus. The prospect of seeing Lisa ignited a sense of adventure within him, simultaneously thrilling and frightening. As he prepared for bed that night, he reflected on his intentions. Would he approach this meeting with his newfound beliefs about success? Or would the ghost of his former self lurk in the shadows, eager to drive the narrative back into territory he was desperately trying to leave behind? With each tick of the clock, uncertainty loomed. There was something liberating about the unknown. It stirred in him an unwavering capacity to confront what had once stood as barriers. Yet, every step taken toward reconnecting with Lisa also revealed inner reflections he had avoided, the unfinished conversations about dreams, urges, and connections that had fallen momentarily out of reach. Morning arrived with an electric buzz. The sky was cloaked in clouds, yet Alex took it as a sign of potential. Every storm could give way to clarity. He dressed with intention, choosing layers that conveyed comfort and authenticity rather than a facade of success. Driving through familiar streets made his chest tighten with memories, both bright and bittersweet. There she was, he thought, somewhere waiting for him to unveil his journey. And yet, what if unveiling led him not to revelations, but to confrontation with life choices he had made in pursuit of hollow accolades? Arriving at the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him. He spotted Lisa at a table by the window, her figure imbued with warmth and familiarity. The moment their eyes met, a rush of uncertainty flowed through him. This encounter could redefine what connection meant, but what if it fractured the image he'd so carefully begun to rebuild? An open-hearted conversation awaited, but he'd need to be prepared for truths that might emerge, truths that could challenge everything he thought he knew about success and fulfillment. The moment of honesty was here, yet he could already feel the weight of decisions pressing against him. As he stepped forward, he knew he would have to confront not only their shared history but also the possibility of change that echoed in every corner of his life. Could he navigate both love and ambition, or would older desires cloud his judgment once more? And just as he approached the table, an unsettling thought flickered. Had he truly put the past to rest, or was it standing right in front of him, waiting to redefine his understanding of success? As he approached the table, Alex noticed how the sunlight streamed through the cafe window, illuminating Lisa's face with a soft glow that brought warmth but also an unsettling reminder of what had slipped through his fingers over the years. The moment she smiled, that unmistakable spark of familiarity swirled within him, pushing aside the anxiety he had clutched tightly since receiving her text. "Alex," Lisa greeted, her voice both a comfort and a challenge. "It's been too long." "Yeah, it has," he replied, settling into the seat across from her, feeling the weight of expectation and the unasked questions poised in the air between them. They exchanged pleasantries, shared small anecdotes of life since college, but the rhythm of conversation felt awkward, as if they were trying to navigate a path littered with unspoken truths. His mind was racing, questioning what Lisa could possibly have to reveal that warranted this reunion, while his heart grappled with the nostalgia that filled the spaces between their words. "So, what's this all about?" he finally asked, his curiosity breaking through the hesitation that held him captive. Lisa hesitated, her eyes searching his for something unsaid. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our time at school, about what really mattered to us. I wanted to see if you still felt that way." The weight of her question hung in the air, colliding with his own swirling thoughts. Did he still believe in the ideals they shared, the ones that whispered of possibilities and passion rather than profits and prestige? He found himself at a crossroads, teetering between the life he chose and the one he had yearned for during those halcyon days of exploration. "I'm not sure," Alex admitted cautiously, sensing the gravity of honestly confronting his past. "I thought success meant climbing higher, right?" Lisa interjected, her tone a mix of understanding and challenge. "But where did it get you, Alex? Money and acclaim are tempting, but did they lead to happiness?" Her insight pierced through the protective shell he had built around himself, exposing feelings he had tucked away. The truth was he felt fragmented, grappling with his identity and purpose, oscillating wildly between pursuit and fulfillment. "I've spent so much time trying to prove myself," he confessed, the vulnerability of his admission forcing him to confront the discontentment that had begun to take root in his heart. "But it feels hollow sometimes." Lisa nodded as if the admission resonated with her own struggles. "We all get lost in the noise. But do you remember our conversations about the things that truly ignited our spirits? The power of connection, the joy of creativity?" I wanted to challenge you to think about why you're doing what you're doing." Her words hung like tendrils, pulling him deeper into reflection. Here was someone who believed in him beyond the titles and status he had amassed. Perhaps her mundane question masked something deeper, a challenge to reconnect not just with her, but with himself. "Why did you reach out to me?" he found himself asking, probing for motive beyond what was on the surface. "I didn't know who else to talk to," she replied, her brow furrowing slightly. "I've been contemplating changes in my own life, passionate about my craft again, but I needed to talk to someone who'd understand. When I thought of my past, you came to mind, someone who reminded me of what it used to mean to follow a dream." At that moment, Alex felt an unexpected rush of clarity. The crux of the conversation was more than a reunion. It was a reminder that success isn't built only on achievements but on embracing passions and authentic connections. "Maybe I need to rediscover that," he murmured thoughtfully. "Not just rediscover," Lisa pressed gently, her passionate tone igniting something within him. "You need to choose it." The dread that had filled his chest began to unravel, making way for determination. The implications of her challenge loomed larger. It was time to confront his own choices and desires. But as they probed deeper into the maze of their hearts, a sudden rattle came from a nearby table, where two men sharply whispered. Their discussion veered towards Alex's professional accomplishments. His name dropped like a heavy weight. It was a reminder of the world he often sought to escape, the one he had been trying so hard to navigate carefully. Suddenly, he was caught between two lives, one that idolized material success and the other that beckoned him towards inner fulfillment. As the atmosphere shifted with those words echoing around him, Alex's resolve hardened. He would need to choose his path, and it was clear that past decisions had to be revisited. Today had thrust him back to his roots, but where would it lead him next? Lisa's eyes held his, awaiting a response that would define their journey forward. In that moment, the stakes increased not only for himself but for the connection he had with her, the essence of who they once were, and who they could be again. He needed to act, but the question loomed large. Would he reclaim himself, or would he retreat back into the security of success as defined by the world's standards? There, with Lisa's piercing gaze urging him forward, the moment of truth was drawing near. Would he grasp it with both hands, or let it slip through once more? The faint clinking of cups and the soft chatter around them faded as Alex focused on the weight of Lisa's gaze. It was both unnerving and invigorating, summoning an awareness he hadn't felt in years. Each second stretched, entwining their past with a present that demanded courage. "I can't just throw away my career, Lisa," Alex responded, his voice deceptively calm. "I've built something here, and it's been my identity." "Is it really who you are, though?" she pressed, the lines of her face etched with concern. "When you think of yourself, do you see the title you hold or the person you wanted to be?" The question bore deeper than he anticipated. He had worn that title like a badge, yet there were moments, quiet, secret moments where he had envisioned a different reality. For a brief flash, he saw himself in studios, surrounded by canvases, lost in the thrill of creation. The joy that came from his art was obscured by the business personas he adopted like a disguise. "I used to think I could make a difference, but that feels distant now," Alex admitted, the cracks in his armor beginning to widen. "I've spent so long convincing myself that this is what I wanted." "Then maybe it's time to explore what else you could want." Lisa leaned in, her urgency palpable. "Reconnect with your creativity. Challenge the narrative you've crafted. It doesn't have to be just a trade-off." Her words ignited something deep within him, a flicker of defiance against the script he had been playing his entire adult life. Could he abandon the safety net he constructed, the very foundation of his existence? The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I don't know where to start," he confessed, the admission tasting bitter on his tongue. "You've already started by sitting here, talking to me," Lisa said. "And you have all those memories and dreams tucked away." Alex's thoughts flew back to those late-night discussions during college when they imagined their futures. They had spoken in vivid colors, unyielding in their ambitions. Then adulthood arrived, bringing the weight of practicality and the numbing shadows of compromise. He leaned back, considering the paths laid before him. Each pathway represented sacrifices he had made and the escalating pressures carried year after year. Was it foolishness to regress to those values they once cherished? Or was it the only key to unshackling himself from this discontent? We could do something together, Lisa suggested, sensing the shift in his internal dialogue. A project, an exploration of art or creativity. Not for money, but for the sake of reinvention. Her offer hung tantalizingly between them, stirring a sense of possibility. A chance to blend their histories and aspirations anew could breathe life into dormant passions. I can't just abandon everything, he murmured, grappling with the push and pull of conflicting desires. What if it leads to failure? Or it could lead you to a happiness you never expected, she replied softly. Real artistry is a risk. I took a leap, and I'm still learning to trust the process each day. The notion of stepping into the unknown sent anxiety coursing through him, but there was also a stirring of hope. Here was Lisa, unwavering in her belief that the essence of creation could reclaim the joy he had sacrificed at the altar of success. As they continued to talk, the cafe faded away, transforming into a landscape of ideas and choices. Conversations dived deeper into personal ambitions and fears, painting a swirling blend of emotions. He felt an awakening, a discontent simmering beneath his exterior loosening its grip. The thought of surrendering stability in pursuit of passion danced at the edges of his mind, building like a wave ready to crash. Could he let serenity overtake his anxiety? Could he allow himself to be vulnerable again? In that moment, Alex felt bravely on the precipice of decision. No longer could he simply passively accept the life prescribed by others. The call to embrace a challenging but authentic journey beckoned. As they exchanged ideas, laughter, and dreams, he realized that the future belonged to those courageous enough to forge their own destinies. The horizon before him gleamed with possibilities, but it still felt so distant and uncertain. But as he pondered the choices ahead, the noise from the nearby table began to reach him again, their hushed conversations murmuring about his latest project successes he had achieved but which now felt distinctly hollow. Reality came crashing into his newly rekindled hopes, forcing him to confront the swirling storm that awaited if he chose to step off the edge into the unknown. Will you take the leap with me? Lisa asked, her sincerity piercing through the tension. The question resonated within him, echoing against the walls of doubt. Could he emerge from the suffocating shadows of his achievements to embrace the vibrant uncertainty of his dreams? The moment of truth was approaching, and the stakes had never been higher. Would he grasp at a fleeting chance for genuine purpose, or would he shrink back into the comforts of his existing success? The weight of Lisa's question lingered as Alex left the cafe, the autumn air crisp against his skin. Each step felt both invigorating and burdensome, a paradox that mirrored his internal struggle. He could feel the specter of his career lurking behind him, the looming expectations from colleagues and the security of his position tugging at the fabric of his resolve. His thoughts whirled as he navigated the crowded streets, each passerby a reminder of the life he had built. Excitement skirmished with trepidation, the prospect of rekindling his creative passions beckoned like a siren song. What if he truly abandoned the meticulously crafted plan that had become his life? He had climbed the corporate ladder, yet his heart raced at the notion of stepping off into the unknown. He remembered the sensation of paint against canvas, the exhilaration of ideas spilling forth without the constraints of deadlines or performance metrics. That sense of freedom felt distant but still flickered in his memory, a beautifully haunting echo demanding to be revisited. The thought of collaboration with Lisa kindled a warmth within him. They shared a deep history, a connection that could transcend their current realities. But was it wise to entwine his dreams with hers, to risk the potential fallout if his exploration led to disappointment? Doubts morphed into a metaphorical weight pressing on his chest as he walked. Back at his apartment, he paused, grappling with the decisions awaiting him. He stood before his easel, its presence a silent challenge. Layers of dust coated his brushes, relics of a past he had unceremoniously discarded. What if, just for a moment, he allowed that past to guide him? He felt an overwhelming urge to reclaim his identity, to confront the protagonist buried beneath the business persona he had constructed. Alex closed his eyes, envisioning those late nights spent in creative fervor, the laughter, the spontaneity, the abandonment of judgment. Was this the price of adulthood? To trade in joy for stability? He sank onto an old chair, the clatter of unfinished projects whispering to him. There was a universe between who he was and who he wanted to become, and it pained him that he hadn't sought that alignment sooner. The emails from his clients waited in his inbox, lined with praises and demands that served to reinforce his current existence. But he felt only a hollow echo whenever he read through them. The accolades felt more like chains now, binding him to a reality that reeked of familiarity but offered no excitement. In an impulsive burst of defiance, he reached for his phone and typed a swift message to Lisa. "I'm in. Let us do this." The moment he hit send, a mix of anticipation and apprehension coursed through him. He didn't even know what this entailed, but the act of committing to possibility felt exhilarating. His heart raced as he envisioned the blank canvas awaiting him, the blank canvas of his life. Would this decision invoke ridicule from his colleagues? Would he be seen as reckless? The fear clashed against a visceral yearning for authenticity. As he pondered the potential fallout, he recalled Lisa's words: real artistry was a risk. He realized that subconsciously, he had been tethering himself to a path paved with fear. It struck him then that surrendering might not equate to failure, perhaps, it was an act of bravery instead. He could choose to explore what lay beyond the defined borders of his life. With newfound determination, Alex reached for a brush, its familiar weight comforting in his hand. The first stroke felt tentative but necessary. What was bound within him yearned for expression, and the chaos of the world faded away as he began to find his rhythm again. There, in the solitude of his once abandoned space, a spark ignited. But the real test awaited. Could he balance the ramifications of this choice with the expectations of his world? Emerging from the cocoon of his previous life was only the beginning. And as he painted, the possibilities surged within him like a tidal wave. Yet, beneath the surface of his revival, deeper questions loomed. How would he face those who had always seen him in one light? The confrontation with authority was on his horizon. His journey had just commenced, but would he muster the courage to navigate the turbulence of both rebirth and resistance? Tomorrow would bring a decisive encounter, an opportunity to redefine his narrative or further entrench his fear. The dawn broke lazily through the window, thin rays of sunlight spilling across the cluttered floor of Alex's apartment. He had hardly slept, each tick of the clock weighing with the gravity of the decision he had made. The night had felt both exhilarating and exhausting, as if an old friend had been rediscovered only to remind him of the hard truths he had been avoiding. As he prepared for the day ahead, his mind raced with the implications of his commitment to Lisa. This wasn't merely about painting or rekindling a passion, this was a step into uncharted waters. Could he withstand the pressure from his colleagues, the whispers of recklessness that might follow him if he faltered? The chaos of thoughts melded into a singular determination. He was ready to change his narrative. Dressing for work felt foreign, each piece of clothing felt like a costume designed for a role he no longer wanted to play. Staring into the mirror, he searched for the part of himself that had craved adventure, daring to dismantle a life that had become a suffocating script. With a deep breath, he left for the office, his heart pounding in rhythm with his footsteps. Each block seemed a small voyage, a journey of self-discovery leading to the inevitable confrontation with his boss, Roger. Their weekly meetings had never stirred anxiety before, but today bore a weight that felt impossible to dismiss. Would Roger support his newfound endeavor or dismiss it as childish folly? Arriving at the office, the familiarity of buzzing energy surrounded him, voices merging into a dull hum. As he navigated the sea of desks, he caught snippets of conversations about quarterly reports and potential clients, reminders of the world he was prepared to redefine. When their meeting was called, Alex found himself seated across from Roger, who greeted him with the usual corporate pleasantries. The office felt starkly imposing, the gray walls closing in as he prepared to speak. He had rehearsed a dozen times in his head, yet the words felt slippery, retreating into obscurity just as he needed them most. "Alex," Roger said, leaning back in his chair, "let us hear your thoughts on our upcoming projects." The question seemed to expand in the room as Alex confronted the reality of his dual existence. He could either comply and deliver a meticulously crafted report on client acquisitions or seize this breath of opportunity. Everything around him began to flicker, the murmurs of ambition battling with self-doubt. Choosing authenticity, he exhaled softly before responding. "Actually, I'd like to discuss a different direction." Roger's face shifted, eyebrows arching in curiosity. Go on. I've been doing some thinking, about my career, about what I truly want. The very act of starting felt like stepping off a cliff, words tumbling forth as his resolve solidified. I want to explore my creative side again. The silence that followed was palpable. Roger's expression hardened into something unreadable, creating an oppressive weight in the air that made Alex's skin prickle. Are you serious? Roger's tone was flat, yet the undercurrents of concern were unmistakable. He leaned forward, assessing him like a financial asset about to plummet. Yeah, I am, Alex replied, his voice steadying against the tidal wave of uncertainty. I want to collaborate on artistic projects, maybe even start a venture that integrates my business experience with creativity. I'm done prioritizing everything above my passion. Roger's face darkened, the glint of a scheming predator emerging. Have you thought about the consequences? This firm counts on you. The company culture is built on professionalism, and you want to diverge? The tension throbbed between them, suffocating and electric. The specter of fear flickered in the corners of Alex's mind, but another part surged forward. Yes, I've considered it. And I understand the stakes. But I need to follow where my passion leads me, even if that means walking away. I refuse to suffocate under expectations. As the weight of that moment settled, Alex realized he had crossed a threshold. While the confrontation had exposed his vulnerability, it also acted as a catalyst for profound change. He would no longer be merely the corporate guy with brush strokes buried in his past. This was only the beginning of reclaiming the fullness of who he was. But Roger remained unconvinced. You might want to rethink this, he warned, the threat hanging in the air as Alex squared his shoulders. It wasn't just a challenge, it was a gauntlet thrown at his feet. As he left the room, heart racing, he pondered the impending fallout. Would this bold step lead him to liberation, or would it lock him in an even tighter cage? The confrontation wasn't merely about his career anymore, it extended far beyond the walls of this office. Tomorrow, he would confront not just Roger but the expectations of everyone around him. It felt like a moment steeped in uncertainty, where love for his craft collided with the financial safety woven into his identity. Could he forge a life that embraced both? With every heartbeat echoing in his ears, Alex resolved to prepare for the intricate dance of advocacy and resistance that awaited. He could feel the canvas of his life expanding, with all its chaotic potential, yearning for the next brushstroke. What would it mean for him to fully embrace both the art he desired and the life he had built? The coffee shop buzzed with an eagerness that mirrored the butterflies in Alex's stomach. He looked around, sensing the palpable energy of possibility weaving its way through the room. Today was the next step in his journey, and he was ready to confront the realities of shifting paths. Lisa had been excited to help guide his exploration of creativity, a project that stemmed not just from nostalgia but from a mutual desire to create something meaningful. Their collaboration felt like a lifeline thrown at a time when he had begun to drift too far into the shadows of corporate expectations. As he settled down at their designated table, the sunlight filtering through the window felt warm and inviting. It reminded him of the promise he had made to himself not merely to chase after fleeting accomplishments but to reclaim who he was at his core. His heart raced at the thought of their plans: an art exhibition, a communal space for creative expression. It felt like embracing his long-buried passion. When Lisa arrived, her smile brought a spark of excitement. I can't wait to unveil our ideas. Are you ready? I am, Alex said, feeling confidence solidify within him. Let us explore this journey together, and not just as a side project. I want it to be something bigger. They dove into discussions about artwork, local artists, and how they could establish a platform that would connect countless individuals yearning for creative connections. Each idea they exchanged felt like revitalizing breaths into a space he had long left stale. As they polished their plan, a familiar trepidation clawed at him. What if it fails? What if this just reinforces the idea that I'm reckless? Failure is part of the process, Lisa replied, her eyes narrowing with resolve. But look at what you're reclaiming, Alex. Your true self can't be hidden behind fear anymore. Her words resonated deeply. By defining his experience in terms of passion and authenticity, he was confronting the fears that had once paralyzed him. The thought of returning to his previous life was like facing a ghost flitting at the periphery of his consciousness, whispering doubts with each step forward. Days turned into weeks as they fleshed out their vision, navigating the terrain of logistics and outreach while reclaiming pieces of their youthful naivete. Alex discovered a buoyancy he hadn't felt in years. Collaborating with Lisa filled him with an exuberance that began to reflect in his everyday demeanor. Colleagues took note, conversations shifted, and even the relentless chase for success began to feel lighter. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of blending creativity with logistics, their grand opening arrived. Standing in front of the freshly painted communal art space, Alex could hardly contain the wave of achievement rolling over him. The walls adorned with vibrant artwork from local talents breathed life into the foundation of their endeavor. As the crowd began to fill the space, a mixture of anticipation and pride radiated within him. Each interaction reminded him why he had stepped away from the clutches of corporate ambition. Here was a world where connection thrived, humanity was casually woven into every encounter. With a cocktail in hand, Alex found himself by the entrance, greeting attendees. To his surprise, Roger stood by the entrance, coming merely to observe. The moment their eyes locked, an unspoken tension vibrated through the air. "Interesting move," Roger remarked, a pinch of curiosity interlaced with skepticism. "I never thought you'd dive into the arts." "It's more than just the arts, Roger," Alex replied, a steeliness woven into his tone. "This is about being authentic and building relationships rather than merely chasing flips and figures." He felt accomplished, for the confrontation had morphed into a moment of validation. Roger's incredulous expression melted into recognition. Perhaps he saw, for the first time, the strength in vulnerability. As the night unfolded, Alex felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Each exchanged laugh, each shared story from artists whose work now adorned the walls was a testament to what he had accomplished, not just rebranding, but reshaping his understanding of success. At the end of the evening, Lisa joined him, marveling at the beauty of their shared dream realized. "You did it, Alex," she said softly, joy spilling from every word. "Look around. You've created something extraordinary." His heart swelled with satisfaction. He recognized the transformation he had undergone. The fear, the doubts, the relentless pursuit of hollow accolades had all contributed to an authentic rebirth. They had constructed a space where voices could intertwine, where creativity knew no bounds, and where love for the craft eclipsed monetary pursuits. "I never thought I could be so content," he confessed, allowing a genuine smile to break through. "Because you stepped into your truth," Lisa replied. "You realized success isn't about what you leave behind, but what you make of the journey ahead." Standing by the vibrant energy of the new collective, Alex felt whole. He had not merely conquered obstacles, he had rebuilt himself, redefined by passion and connection rather than corporate ambitions. The skyscrapers of his former life faded in significance against this new horizon teeming with potential. With each moment that passed, he further understood that he was no longer bound by others' definitions of success. He was now a man propelled by creativity, authenticity, and the love of genuine connections. As they locked eyes, a radiant promise sat palpable between them. The future beckoned not as an obligation but as an adventure waiting to unfold. Together, they would explore new avenues of possibility, guided not merely by ambition but by the heart. So much awaited him, and he dared to step forward into the unknown. Fully aware that this newfound journey had only just begun, he embraced the joyful anxiety of all it could become. Now, as you embark on your journey, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear your reactions and theories about this conclusion, so comment below. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation and reconnect with their dreams. Support true personal overcoming stories.